The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Rena Voss stepped onto the combat platform, her boots echoing against the crystalline floor. On her shoulder, Kex, a small earth creature the aliens had mistaken for a decorative pet, shifted his weight and let out a low, rumbling growl that seemed far too large for his compact body. "This is your champion?" High Arbiter Zekthor's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. The insectoid diplomat gestured toward Rena with one of his 4 arms. A single human, unarmed, unarmored, and accompanied by, "What is that thing?" "That's Kex," Rena said calmly, reaching up to scratch behind the cub's ears. "He's a bear cub." "Well, he was. Now he's my partner." The assembled delegates from 17 species erupted in a cacophony of chirps, growls, and synthesized laughter. For 3 cycles, they had debated humanity's petition to join the Council as equals, rather than as a protectorate species. The sticking point was always the same. Humans were weak. They had no natural weapons, no claws, no venom, no armored hide. Their military relied entirely on technology, which the Council deemed a crutch for the inferior. The terms were clear, Zekthor continued. Humanity must prove its worth through the trial of dominance. Unarmed combat. Your species against our champion. He gestured grandly toward the far end of the platform. Rena had expected something impressive. What emerged from the shadows exceeded even her worst estimates. The Crack's champion stood nearly 3 meters tall, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming purple-black under the chamber's lights. 4 arms, each ending in serrated claws that could rend steel. A tail thick as a human torso, tipped with a bone spike dripping with paralytic venom. The creature had evolved on a death world where everything fought to survive, and it showed in every ridge and spine of his armored body. "That's Vorthok," someone whispered from the gallery. "Undefeated in 47 trials," Kex growled again, louder this time. The sound resonated in Rena's chest, and she felt the familiar weight of his trust. His certainty that she would handle this. She'd found him as an orphaned cub in the Yellowstone ruins, back when Earth was still recovering from the contact wars. They'd grown up together, learning each other's languages, each other's warnings. "Begin when ready," Zekthor announced, his voice carrying a note of dismissive finality. This would be over quickly. Vorthok charged. Most beings would have frozen. The Cracks moved with the momentum of a freight train. All that mass and natural weaponry bearing down with lethal intent. His upper arms raised high, claws spread to eviscerate, while his lower arms reached forward to grab and crush. Rena stepped forward to meet him. Kex's growl hit a pitch that made the nearest delegates cover their auditory organs. It wasn't just sound, it was a warning, a promise, a declaration that something terrible was about to happen. Vorthok swung his primary arm in a devastating arc that would have torn through most species like wet paper. Rena read the telegraph in his shoulder. The slight shift of weight that preceded the strike. She'd studied Crack's physiology for months. Watched hours of combat footage. Understood their strengths and their weaknesses. She moved inside his reach. Her left hand shot out, fingers wrapping around the joint where his exoskeleton segments met at the wrist. Humans didn't have claws, but they had something the galaxy consistently underestimated. Precision grip strength developed over millions of years of tool use, and the biomechanical leverage of an upright stance and rotating shoulder joints. Rena twisted. The snap echoed through the chamber like a gunshot. Vorthok's wrist joint, designed to move in specific planes, shattered under the torque of her rotation. The claw that had been descending toward her skull went limp, and the champion's roar of pain and shock shook dust from the ancient ceiling. She didn't stop. Couldn't afford to. As Vorthok reflexively pulled back, Rena used his momentum against him, yanking him forward and down while simultaneously driving her knee upward into the weak point she'd identified beneath his lower thorax, the spot where his exoskeleton plates met and flexed to allow movement. The impact drove the air from his spiracles with a sound like a deflating balloon. His tail lashed out, the venomous spike seeking her flesh, but Rena had already pivoted. She caught the tail behind the spike with both hands, using her whole body weight and the principle of leverage. the same physics that let humans move boulders with simple levers. She pulled sharply downward while placing her foot against his lower back. Another crack. The tail went slack. Kex hadn't stopped growling, the sound now almost triumphant. Vorthok collapsed to his knees, 3 limbs now useless, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Rena stepped back, hands raised but ready. She wasn't breathing hard. This had taken less than 10 seconds. "We surrender," Vorthok wheezed, his translator barely keeping up. "I submit." The human wins. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Zek Thor's mandibles hung open. Around him, delegates sat frozen in various states of shock. Finally, a voice from the back, a crystalline Vex scholar, spoke what they were all thinking. "How? She has no weapons. No armor. No natural." "We are the weapons," Rena interrupted, her voice cutting through the assembly. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We learned to read body language across species barriers. We developed the most versatile gripping appendages in known space. We understood leverage and joint mechanics before we developed written language. We've been studying and breaking things for 200,000 years. She gestured to Kex, who had finally stopped growling. "And we learned something else that most of you seem to have forgotten: partnership. Trust. Kex warned you. Every time, that growl wasn't random. It was his way of telling you, she knows what she's doing, and you're about to find out why you should be afraid." Rena walked to the center of the platform, addressing the council directly. "You wanted to know if humans could fight without technology? We've been doing it longer than most of your species have had written language. We mapped the stars. But before that, we mapped every bone, every pressure point, every leverage point in every creature we ever encountered. Not to destroy them, to understand them." She looked down at Vorthok, who was being tended by medical staff. "No hard feelings, champion. You fought honorably. But you never stood a chance." Zekthor found his voice. "The council will need to deliberate." "Jada, Ja." Rena smiled, reaching up to stroke Kex's fur. "Take your time. We'll be here. Unarmed, unafraid, and ready to show you what humanity really means." As she walked from the platform, Kex purred a sound like distant thunder, and the assembled delegates understood at last why this species, seemingly so fragile, had survived everything their harsh world had thrown at them. They were humans, and that was weapon enough.